Picture this: a handshake in Tehran, a drone strike in Yemen, and oil flowing through a desert pipeline guarded by enemies turned friends. Why is Israel allied with the United States but hated by most of its neighbors? Why are Saudi Arabia and Iran nearly always at odds? And how did tiny Qatar survive a blockade by its neighbors? The Middle East is shaped by centuries of empire, religion, oil, and power struggles that run deeper than most realize. Let's unravel its tangled web of alliances and rivalries. For over 600 years, the Ottoman Empire loosely united diverse peoples and faiths under a vast empire that spanned 3 continents. After World War I, the empire collapsed, and Britain and France divided the lands without regard for the region's complex local identities. They drew borders that lumped rival groups together or split ethnicities, sowing seeds of future conflict and instability. Countries like Iraq and Syria combined Sunnis, Shias, Kurds, and others under fragile governments, struggling to maintain peace. The Kurds, a stateless people split across several countries, have faced decades of unrest fighting for recognition and autonomy. Meanwhile, Lebanon's French mandate created a delicate sectarian balance that often broke down into violence and political deadlock. Oil transformed vast deserts into some of the richest lands on Earth almost overnight. Saudi Arabia's 1930s discovery made it a key US ally, exchanging energy for military protection and political support. This alliance helped sustain monarchies that promised stability and the uninterrupted flow of oil, though often suppressing political dissent at home. The wealth fueled rapid modernization, creating sprawling cities, luxurious lifestyles, and immense regional influence. Gulf states like Kuwait, the UAE, and Qatar used their oil riches to become major global players, investing worldwide and projecting soft power far beyond their small borders. Yet this dependence on oil also created vulnerabilities. Any disruption in supply could send shockwaves through the global economy, giving these states outsized leverage in international affairs. In 1979, Iran's Islamic Revolution shook the region to its core, overthrowing a pro-Western monarchy and replacing it with a theocracy openly hostile to Western influence. Before the revolution, Iran, under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was a close U.S. ally, aggressively modernizing and secularizing the country. But many Iranians saw the Shah as corrupt and oppressive, a puppet of Western powers. The revolution brought Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini to power, who declared Iran an Islamic republic and vowed to export the revolution's ideals across the region. This terrified Saudi Arabia, a conservative Sunni monarchy, igniting a bitter rivalry that persists to this day. The two now battle for regional influence, backing opposing sides in conflicts like Yemen, Syria, and Lebanon, turning the Middle East into a patchwork of proxy wars. Saudi Arabia and Iran rarely confront each other directly, instead fighting through allied groups. In Yemen, the Saudi-led coalition battles Iran-backed Houthi rebels in a brutal civil war, causing one of the worst humanitarian crises of our time. In Syria, Iran supports President Bashar al-Assad's regime, while Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states fund rebel groups aiming to overthrow him. Lebanon's Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed Shia militia, opposes Sunni factions linked to Saudi Arabia and has fought multiple wars with Israel. These proxy conflicts prolong suffering and involve global powers like the United States and Russia, making peace efforts complex and fragile. Israel's founding in 1948 immediately sparked wars with its Arab neighbors. Despite repeated conflicts, Israel emerged as a regional military power with strong backing from the United States. For decades, Israel was diplomatically isolated in the Arab world. That changed with the 2020 Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and countries like the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. These agreements were largely driven by shared concerns over Iran's regional ambitions and economic interests. In 2017, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt imposed a blockade on Qatar, accusing it of supporting terrorism and maintaining close ties to Iran, charges Qatar vehemently denied. Rather than backing down, Qatar strengthened its alliances with Turkey and the United States, hosting the largest U.S. military base in the region, Al Udeid Air Base. The blockade lasted over 3 years, but ultimately failed, showcasing Qatar's resilience and diplomatic savvy. Qatar also wields significant influence through media, especially with its global news network Al Jazeera, which has at times angered its neighbors. Turkey, the successor state to the Ottoman Empire, is reasserting itself as a major regional player under President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Erdogan's blend of nationalism and political Islam has driven Turkey to support groups aligned with its vision across the Middle East. Turkey is an ally of Qatar, but often at odds with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Egypt. Its military interventions in Syria, Libya, and Sudan have added further complexity to already tangled regional alliances. Palestine remains a powerful emotional and political issue across the Arab world, symbolizing resistance and injustice for many. However, governments differ in how they approach the cause. Some openly support Palestinians, others have quietly normalized relations with Israel. Groups like Hamas, backed by Iran, control Gaza and oppose Israel through both politics and armed resistance. Egypt controls Gaza's borders and has often mediated ceasefires, balancing complex regional pressures. The unresolved Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues to fuel anger and instability throughout the Middle East. Today, the Middle East is divided not only by religion and ethnicity, but also by governance. Monarchies versus republics, reformers versus hardliners. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 seeks to diversify the economy and open society, though progress is uneven. Iran faces ongoing protests demanding political freedom and relief from economic hardship amid sanctions. A youthful population connected by social media increasingly demands jobs, rights, and peace. How these social changes will reshape alliances and conflicts remains to be seen, but they add a new dynamic to an already complex region. So why are Middle Eastern countries allied or not? Because of centuries of empire, colonial interference, religious division, and competition for resources. Because of ideology, monarchies versus republics, Sunni versus Shia, nationalism versus political Islam. Because of power struggles, proxy wars, and foreign influence from the United States, Russia, Turkey, and others. The alliances you see today are fragile, layered with history, belief, and billions of dollars in arms and aid. And the future? It's unpredictable. One spark could change everything again. That's why understanding history isn't just interesting, it's essential. If you want to keep tracking these global power games and see how history shapes today's headlines, subscribe to Factomania, because knowing history might just help you survive the future.